Page 117. Ben, were you able to find the Aramaic to read along? Okay. Ben, you just chime in whenever you're ready if you find. I think everyone here should be able to unmute yourselves if you need to, which is fine. If you need to, feel free to. If you don't need to, just leave it on mute. Okay. Ben, whenever you, if you, I can't, I don't know where you are because I mean, I guess I could find you here.
No,
Um,
I'm here. I tried to log out and log back in so I could see myself,
oh,
but not working for
okay.
some reason. But I have the sorry.
You know why you can't see yourself? I have to probably maybe this will help. Yeah. Meaning it's just the beach. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
The beach is good.
I don't know,
The
something
beach
with
is
me.
good. Okay.
Yeah,
So on the first on the day of the first fruits.
I'm just getting there. I apologize.
Okay, so let me just give a brief introduction here. We have there's two very similar offerings. It's slightly confusing. One is called the Omer offering, and the reason why that's confusing is because you'd think the Omer offering would be um, at the end of the on Shavuos. But the truth is, I believe they're both referred to as the Omer in the sense that they have um, that the Omer is a um, a particular measurement that they would bring. What they had in common, other than the measurement, is that they were both essentially first produce offerings. That's why it's confusing because they're both called first. The difference is that the Omer offering that was brought. We generally talk about the Omer offering as being the offering that's brought on the second day of Passover, and that was already a big debate. It's in the Bible. The term is Mimachras HaShabbos, the day after the Shabbos. The rabbis were clear that that meant the day after the first day of Passover. That would be the second day of Passover. They were in disagreement with other sectarian groups, most notably the Tzaddukim, and according to I think like the Book of Jubilees, it wasn't just that they argued about the particular day of the offering, but it was about the whole calendar, whether the calendar was a solar/lunar calendar or just a solar calendar. And that our opinion, the rabbi's opinion, is that it was a solar calendar in terms of the seasons, but it was a lunar calendar in terms of the months. And that's part of a broader discussion about this real very big gap in our understanding of time. But it came to a head in this particular disagreement. Okay, so so the first offering was a barley offering. Now the Zohar is going to talk a little bit about what's the significance of barley. We know that the Talmud in Sota describes the minchat kinaot, which is again the meal offering of jealousy. There was the jealous husband who suspected his wife of adultery had a very awkward ritual called the Sota, which has a whole tractate in the Talmud. It's a fascinating tractate. It's not a very. I don't want to get into the details because it could take up the whole shiur in terms of exactly what is a Sota. But the basic concept is it was a jealous husband who suspected his wife of having an affair. He warns her. The Talmud discusses where are the witnesses, meaning the witnesses understand there's something going on. The husband is there's a debate about what part of this needs testimony, but the part that's missing, according to the Talmud, is evidence that she actually carried out the affair. What they do have is suspicion because she didn't listen to the warning. She continued to see that man in a private setting where something could have ostensibly happened. I have a whole joke about that, but it's inappropriate, so I won't tell the joke. The concept here is that why the barley offering? So the Talmud gives the following suggestion: barley, for whatever reason, was considered Michael Behema, was considered animal food. I guess I don't know. I'm not a farmer, so what do I know about what is or isn't animal food, as opposed to wheat, which is considered more human food, which is normally the mincha offerings were made out of wheat. So she did a maisa behema, she did a more animalistic act. Therefore, the carbon that she brings is more fit for an animal, which is interesting. Why are we bringing this same animal food, so to speak, as our first of the grain offerings on the second day of Pesach? So the Zohar is going to talk a little bit about that. It's going to also talk about the kind of the equation between the mincha offering of the jealous husband and suspected adulterous woman, and the time of between Pesach and Shavuos, and I guess the kind of the element of judgment, which might explain why until today we have an element of stringencies to the point where certain people don't take haircuts or listen to live music and other various things during this time of the Sefirat to Haomer, not necessarily for the whole period of between Pesach and Shavuos, but certain amount of time during that period. So it's all connected to this concept in the Zohar here. So let's, with that in mind, and then of course we're going to talk about the what these 7 weeks represent, the inner work of counting the Haomer. They represent this opportunity to do tikkun, to do fixing on our 7 basic midot, our attributes, chesed through malchut. That's one of the most famous kind of Zoharic formulations that made its way into our siddur, into our not the exact words, but the conceptual idea of l'tarenu, to purify us, l'kadshenu, to sanctify us, b'kedusha elyona, with heavenly sanctification. Through the counting of the Haomer becomes not just simply a countdown from Pesach to Shavuos, but it becomes an amazing opportunity for this kind of specific type of self-reflection. What are you holding up, Rabbi Yossi?
Let me just shamelessly
Sure.
English product.
Yeah.
So this is a Sefirat Haomer book by Rabbi Avraham Aryeh Trugman.
Oh, okay. He's a good friend.
Really good.
Yeah, okay,
It has
good.
the usual stuff, but for every one of the parts, every day there's wonderful readings, meditations that he's presented in the book. So I've been using this for about 2 years now. It came out in 2018.
That's
I
great.
used other ones before that. This is really, really good.
Great,
So
great.
Let me just advertise.
Plug away. It's for a good. It's for a good man, a good book. So that's fine. That's fine. Good. Thank you, Rabbi Yossi. So with that, I'm hoping I gave plenty of time for Ben to find the Zohar. Yeah. Great. Fantastic. Okay. So, sorry. Uveyoma bikurim. On the day of the first fruits, when you bring an offering of the new grains to Hashem, in your festival of weeks. It's a great word, Shvuo Sechem. So it literally means in your weeks something, like it's kind of it's like a almost like a made up a made up name. I don't know how often it and what a wonderful play on words, because what is Shavuos? Shavuos means weeks. And the Torah tells us count Sheva Shavuos, a week of weeks. So it's like this, it's almost like this pun. It's like 7 sevens, holiday of 7 sevens. The holiday of the 7 weeks. So it's a great word. And I'm not like a big word person. I'm not big on grammar, not Hebrew or English grammar, if you haven't noticed. But it is kind of a fun word. Okay, so go ahead. A sacred convocation shall you have. No laborious work shall you do. That's a verse in Numbers 28, verse 26. Rabbi Shimon open. This is a beautiful pasuk. Then the trees of the forest will sing for joy before God, for he has come to judge the earth. It says it's Chronicles, but there's also pretty much the same thing in Psalms that we say on Friday night. Happy is the share of those who engage in Torah, who knows the way of the Blessed Holy One, and who are connected with his name every day. And woe is to those who do not engage in Torah, for they have no share in the holy name and are not linked or connected to it, neither in this world nor in the world that is coming. Whoever attains in this world attains it in the coming world. We have learned the following. It's a quote from Shir Hashirim, Song of Songs. Stirring the lips of sleepers, even if they are in that world, their lips are still astir, meaning even in the next world, with Torah. One of the concepts in I believe in almost every religion, and I am no expert in religion, but I do read a little bit and listen a little bit. In almost every religion is this idea of eternity, of something more than just this world. So in a sense, what he's suggesting here is when Torah connects you to that eternity. When you study the Torah, you don't stop talking just because you're 6 feet under, so to speak. There's some quality of connection to Torah that continues even after. I mean, the concept is that when you live for something higher than yourself, you don't die when you die. Meaning your life, even if it's limited in time, gets plugged in to some other thing greater than you that will continue despite you no longer continuing. Of course, that's the great recipe for running a cult, of course, as well, which a lot of people have suggested that religions are just bigger, more successful cults than smaller, crazier cults. But that's why did I even say this? This is bad for business, right?
Is it true even in scientifically, like laws of physics, if you send out radio waves like voice, reverberations, like, COVID, how long does COVID or how far does it, right? Your words, is it possible that a scintilla of that remains in perpetuity? Versus if you stop walking, for example, to the synagogue, well, then you stop. There's nothing left. But when you speak, it's forever still something.
Certainly, if somebody spreads the virus, the virus will spread throughout the whole world. But I think that's why a lot of public intellectuals who are kind of quasi atheists, agnostics. They're one of their newest ways of explaining religion is a meme. Somebody says something and then it spreads and then everyone says it, which is kind of how so many things work in the biological world. So, it's interesting. Are there parallels between science and religion in terms of there's some the new atheists are actually more thoughtful than some of the old atheists who just didn't. If you see their arguments, they're kind of almost silly because they create this like straw man religion that they then take down. But the new atheists are more suggesting that religion had a lot of evolutionary advantages. So, for example, one of the more common explanations for religion, and I don't know why the hell I'm talking about this now, but I will anyway, is that before religion, you had a tribe, and the tribe was very regional, very local. And essentially that would mean that every tribe was in competition with every other tribe, so there were lots of squabbles on a local level, and religion allowed for what they, I don't know who came up with the term, a super tribe that transcends a particular location or a particular family. So I mean, in terms of and even nationality, to some degree. So it's possible that we go to war for religions, but it's also possible we go to war for a country. So is it possible that people of the same religion in different countries have no interest in necessarily fighting each other, although that's not always the case, because they have something in common that's not defined by boundaries of a nation. So that's a little bit of some of the more secular thinking out there that explain religion in terms of its evolutionary value. Why am I talking about this? I will tell you a little bit about why. Because I think, I had this conversation with a scientist who said he thinks that there's a human element that of people have in different ways where they want to create some part of themselves that will exist outside of their physical lifetime. So for some people, they're driven to politically to be powerful, to have a political legacy. So whether it's Reagan or Gorbachev or I don't know, Kissinger, people whose kind of political contributions are noted by historians, are sometimes emulated or ridiculed, but in a serious way. So that person has gained some level of immortality through the work that they've done. Somebody who's a scientist, right, who dedicates their life to science or to law, and is able to influence that area. They have in a certain way, they've achieved something, some level of not just simply fame, because fame is good only as far as you only can benefit from it in a real or imagined way in your lifetime. But it's more than just that. It's people looking for something that they can feel that they contributed something to society, that's left society, hopefully for the better. So my friend Jack Fishman said, he thinks that, and he was very skeptical. I wouldn't call him an atheist, but he was definitely a scientist who had a skeptical part of him. And he would say that religion, with this type of talk that we're talking about, does give people a sense that what they're doing can be connected to something that goes beyond their lifetime. Now, he was saying it possibly in a way that's saying, but it's not real necessarily. It's just what they're saying. It doesn't make it real. But the truth is it could be real, because if it really does get people to do things in a selfless way, which is, you don't have to be religious to be selfless. But the whole idea of being selfless is a religious impulse. You can say it has nothing to do with God, it has to do with some humanity, whatever you call it. But once you do that, you do actually plug into something beyond yourself, and you take on qualities that exist beyond your limited lifespan. And again, evolutionary biologists would argue that you're just keeping yourself alive through, if not your own physical biological children, people who have some relationship to you and so on. So we can discuss that day and night, whether it's truly for the sake of heaven, so to speak, or if there's some evolutionary biology at play here. But that's beyond the scope of this Zohar. Anyway, let's go on.
Isn't it, Rabbi, that the genetic wiring of an interest in legacy is sort of in the reverse? It's connected that humans are the only organism that recognizes that it will die. So if animals knew that they would die, they'd also want to create legacy. They just don't. So it's really more like saying that the human or any organism has an interest in doing and being, and we just have luck.
We just know about
luck out, and therefore are wired to want to have post-life legacy because we know we will die.
I mean, I think it's connected because I said so myself at a Shiva call this week. No, I'm terrible. I mean, there's a lot of truth in this. You know, there's a lot of like, what's the way to put it? Like, kind of these pithy statements that you hear all the time, but then eventually you get to the point where you're like, you know, that's really true when you experience it yourself. And one of them is we value our lives so much because of death, because of illness. Sometimes we count our days because we know that we don't have them forever. And what Ben is saying is even more than that. It's like, it's because we're aware of our mortality that we want to achieve some form potentially of immortality. So yeah, it could be connected. Yeah, I mean, and not could be, it is. I'd say you're right. I don't know if it's the only thing that makes us want that. There's other factors as well, but certainly that's one of them, yeah. Okay, so that's a little sidebar. The reason why the Zohar, by the way, says this hundreds of times. It loves to say, you know, you do this, you're connected to life, an eternal life. If you don't, you're not even when you're alive, your life is not right. It doesn't have like right spiritual value to it. So it's just something that the Zohar likes to. It's like the most famous part of Musar that the Zohar likes to say. Okay, so we're done with the Musar. We've even given a little bit of a explanation for. I have a lot of friends who come from a yeshiva world, and then when they discovered science, they see it as a contradiction. And it's interesting enough, I have this like almost the opposite reaction. I read about evolution, and I'm like, wow, that really proves God exists. I know you're not like supposed to like have that reaction, because people are like, no, that's an alternate explanation. I'm like, actually, no. I just really see I just see God in it. Like, I know people will argue with me scientifically. No, it doesn't need to have God. I'm like, I don't know, but that's how I feel. That's what I see. Like this, just this. The first time I walked down when I was a kid, and I went to the Natural History Museum. I'm like, wow, they're really trying to like give an alternate explanation that leaves God out. But the more I would go there, the more I just would feel the opposite. It was like, wow, this is happening like this. This is like, it's almost, I think, the other famous Newton. We have David Newton, and then there's Sir Isaac Newton said, he was the one who figured out the explanation of why everything is exactly where it is in the sky. Not exactly where it is, but what's holding everything together is gravity. But he said this thing that only God could put everything in the right place so that with gravity it would all be held together in the way it is magnificently the world that we know. So it's almost like, the believer is going to believe, the non-believer is not going to believe. It's not like I don't have to deny everything science says to believe. I could say, oh, wow, to me that just, makes me even believe in God even more. So I'm hopeless for the atheists trying to recruit me. You're a lost cause. Waste your time on someone else. Okay. Let's continue. Well, wait a second. Why don't we have Zev read the note 188?
Note 188. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good. Rabbi Shimon quotes this verse. The verse is, "Then the trees of the forest will sing." He quotes it in connection with the festival of Shavuos, weeks, which is described in the verse from Numbers 28, quoted in the preceding sentence as the day of first fruits. In Kabbalah, Torah is often depicted as God's name. Here, Rabbi Shimon indicates that one who attains Torah in this world continues to utter its words in the afterlife. See Shir Hashirim Rabbah on 710. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Even when a Torah scholar has died, his lips move in the grave. Why? Stirring the lips of sleepers." Here, Rabbi Hanina, son of Papa, and Rabbi Shimon.
Yeah, you're good.
One said, like one who drinks spiced wine. The other said, like one who drinks aged wine. Even though he has drunk it, the taste and aroma are still in his mouth. In numerous rabbinic parables, the first part of this teaching reads differently. See, for example, Babylonian Talmud Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yochanan said, in the name of Rabbi Shimon, son of Yotzadak, if a law is quoted in a person's name in this world, his lips stir in the grave, as it is said, stirring the lips of sleepers. See a number of other places. In the passage from Shir Hashirim Rabbah, the phrase "a Torah scholar" renders Ben Torah, a son of Torah, a reading that I have adopted instead of Ben Torah, instead of Ben Torta, Rabbi Yochanan, son of Torta.
Oh.
The full verse.
Yeah, there's just different. Different.
Okay.
But Danny spends a few hours every day going through different ways of reading the Zohar. Okay, so just a little bit about this thing about this quote that tzaddik. There's this idea that when when you quote a Tana or an Amora, when you quote a sage from the Mishnah or the Talmud, their mouth is talking together with you, which, by the way, became almost like a form of meditation, particularly inspiring to Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, and had a little bit of an influence on the subsequent rise of visiting the Kivrei Tzadikim, the graves of the righteous, that Rabbi Moshe Cordovero was actually one of the people. And then Rabbi Isaac Luria, tremendous amount of time figuring out who was buried where and going to them. And there was this concept that you kind of basically channeled to some degree the neshama, to the soul of the tzaddik, by A, visiting them, B, by speaking their Torah. And there's this idea that Ben was talking about the Torah as like, the words as like, where do those sound waves go? But just, if you could think of the idea of the words of somebody somehow representing their spirit, and their spirit has an eternal quality, and you can kind of tap into that spirit, so to speak. It's a pretty cool concept. And I like that thing about wine, because it gives a parable of that wine. A good wine, it's not just the swallowing the wine, it's the taste of the wine. It lingers after the actual wine has been has gone down. You still have that, like a really good wine, like it's just like it's still in your mouth. That the complexity of the wine is still there, as opposed to Coca-Cola or a bad wine. So in that sense, it's like a little bit of a taste of the idea of this otherworldliness, spirituality as something that is so like sweet and good that it lasts beyond our lifetime. Okay, so that's a great note, and let's continue with. We're on page 118, and sorry guys, on Facebook, my goal, if you are watching Facebook, is that there is a feature on Zoom that allows you, in theory, to have the Zoom be shown on Facebook Live. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work for me. The connection isn't always strong enough. I guess I'll have to figure that out one day or another. Okay, so let's continue, Ben. Come and see. Until now, Israel offered the yield of the land. The yield of the land, surely. Engaging in it. And being bound in the bond. Go on. Although judgment is present or prevails, it is judgment by which the world is conducted. I'm not sure the Aramaic that you have and the English we have are exact translations.
There's a little weird vowelization here.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's just the vowels. Read that line again. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
And some say the Alma is Nahegbe.
Yeah, well here it's the Alma is Nagbe. Okay, yeah, that's exactly the difference. So yeah, it has both the two readings are there. So that's the second one. Yeah. The judgment which the world is conducted. A little bit about judgment here. I think on a simplistic level, a farmer feels like they're always being judged. You know how like we're everybody now is like kind of freaking out about how are we going to make a living? I don't know if you guys are. Any of you freaking out a little bit? I'm not freaking out yet, but I know I'm going to, like it's like when should I freak out, So you could imagine, and part of the freak out is we don't know the future, like how long is this thing going to last, and then how long will it last, the economic impact afterwards last, all of that story. Now imagine every year you don't really have a salary, you have a field. You have no idea what's going to happen with that field. You have to, you know that you have work to do, but you could do all the work, and then there could be a drought, and it won't rain, and then there could be pestilence, and there could be something that afflicts your crop in many ways, or then the crop could rot. There's so many problems that could happen, especially when they didn't have the technology that we now have. Even with the technology we have, there's things that could go wrong. So what that means at a simple level is there's a lot of din. There's a lot of like a judgment in the sense of like, is this going to work? Okay. So right away you have to realize on a very simple level, what are we davening for? Right? This is a lot of people don't understand this. What are we davening for? If you'd ask the average person today, what are they davening for? They're davening for physical well-being. They're davening for their own economic well-being, which means that they want to make a living. They want to be able to sustain themselves continue to have a roof over their head, continue to have medical care through insurance, and then there are things I wouldn't even call them extras. We want to have a loving partner. We want to have an ability to have meaningful relationships to help educate. We want to educate our children, right? These are all things that we know and we want. And we know, like, specifically now, we're up against this, that, and the other with this kind of economic downturn we know exactly the cause of it, which is basically the economy is shrinking rapidly because there's these stay-at-home orders. And even if there wasn't the stay-at-home orders, we'd have issues with people getting sick left and right. So we know that, right? So we know what we're davening for. Part of what we are davening for is the unknown, that it should work out. So if you think about what we're davening for, it would be very simple to reimagine 3,000 plus years ago. What are they davening for? Their economy is based in large part on either there's trade, obviously, but there's so much that's contingent on the value of the goods that are produced through the earth, through planting, whether it's the produce, whether it's the grain, or the fodder that's going to feed the animal. So what are all the offerings essentially really ordered around in all of the various Yom Tovim? They're really so much about the different things that are produced. So in that sense, these two major holidays, Pesach, Shavuos, and of course Sukkot as well, the three major holidays, they're all focused around the production of the variety of things that grow from the ground. So Pesach for the barley, and Shavuos for the wheat. And the barley and the wheat represent more than just the barley and the wheat. They're like, they're representative of what we call the bikurim, the things that ripen the first. They're both considered first. One is first for its kind, the other first for its respective other kind. So that's, in a sense, they daven the way we daven. They daven for what they needed the most. We daven for what we need the most. So nothing's really changed other than what it is that some people are looking at the stock market or their company and it's the same thing. It's just different. It's different. It's coming through different, slightly different mediums. It's not really that different. Okay, so now let's look a little deeper here. That's simple. Whatever I just said is that's very simple. Any rabbi who will look in the Chumash, you don't need to be a rabbi. Read the Chumash. It's pretty much there, right? But what about barley? Okay, so let's talk about what barley represents. Remember, Pesach is the first holiday. Pesach also, we learned before, that Pesach represents a certain level of imperfection. God did the work to take us out, but we were not perfect just because He helped us out. The question becomes, after God does the initial miracle of the Exodus and the splitting of the sea, what do we do with that? And that's really what this section is about. This section is about making ourselves into something and not just relying on God's gift of Pesach. So what's the first thing that comes? It's the first of the produce is barley. Okay, barley was offered. Go ahead, Ben. Because it is the first of all produce. And what is first should be offered. Now, there's two things in that. Usually first, the Torah loves the first. It's the firstborn. It's the first fruit. It's the firstborn animal. It's whatever is first is like God wants to get connected to that. But there's another thing which is first, which is actually the lowest. And what's the lowest? The lowest sphera is a sphera of malchut. So barley is low because it's the first and the lowest at the same time, because what happens is the order of the sphirot becomes inverted. So that which is last as it's coming from the highest to the lowest becomes first as we climb up the ladder. So that's the barley, which is the first. So it's kind of a play on the traditional value of first, where it's like what's last becomes first. And in Kabbalah it's called as sof ma'aseh machshavat tchila, the final act, which is associated with malchut, becomes the sof ma'aseh machshavat tchila. That's how keter and malchut are really connected. It's more than we want to get into, but the idea of noat tchilatan b'sofam v'sofam tchilas, and the relationship between the most kind of beginning of all beginnings and the end result is what the intention of the beginning is really about. So that to some level. So it's the first and the last. It's a playful concept here. For Israel's first connection with the Blessed Holy One is here. Go ahead, read note 190. It's a short one. Zev? Okay. It's a very short one. I'll read it. It's.
I didn't realize I was muted. I forgot.
Yeah. Go ahead, 190.
Being the first grain harvested, symbolizing Shechina, the first Sefira from below to above.
Great. Okay, good. Continuing, Ben, the Blessed Holy One said, and what is the first should be offered, not what comes later. For Israel's first connection with the Blessed Holy One is here. Okay, let's continue. The Blessed Holy One said, I gave you manna in the desert from that place called heaven, as it is written, look, I am about to rain down for you bread from heaven. Right? It's a pasuk in Exodus 16:4. And until now you've been offering me barley. So it's almost like I gave you man, and what are you giving me? You're not even giving me the best of your grains. You're giving me the barley, which is like it's kind of like a lesser level of grain, animal grain. Now notice that until now you have been offering me barley. It doesn't really make sense on a chronological order. The manna came before. We only were commanded to do this Haomer offering of barley when we came into the land of Israel, and the manna had already finished. So the order is out of whack, unless we understand that it's more referring to the bechina, to the kind of the level, not so much the actual chronology. In general, Judaism, I've said this many times, I don't want to get into trouble because people will misunderstand what I'm saying, but Judaism is not really a history book. It's not really how we understand the simplistic version of what happened when. It's actually what is happening. So, we understand there's a value of order. There's a value of order because that helps us understand that there is a beginning and end to things. So it's not totally devaluing the idea of history, but it's not just describing as like this is history and its only value is in its chronology and that's all it is. It has a value in terms of a cyclical value. A lot of other spiritual religious groups have this idea of a cycle is more important than a linear version of what happens. The cycle is like a recycling of what happens every year at this time happens at this time. So that's one idea in Kabbalah and Judaism, that the cycle of the year has, in a way, I mean, it is crazy, right? You think about it, we're going through this crazy time, and what were we so focused on? Pesach. Pesach happened thousands of years ago. No, it happened right now, right here, because it happens every year. It didn't happen thousands of years ago. So in that sense, the Zohar is telling us the order is first Haomer, barley, and then man. No, that's not the actual chronological order. It's the conceptual order. Is that malchut, barley is the lowest sphere of malchut, has to be joined with tiferet, with one of the higher sefirot. And sometimes God says, listen, that's all you can give me, I got it, but I want you to do better. I want you to go from the barley to the wheat. I want you to go from Pesach to Shavuos, which is closer to where I am in terms of the man. Is that making any sense? Okay, Zev, you want to read note 191?
I gave you manna, which comes from heaven, symbolizing Tiferes. Why then is Israel offering barley, symbolizing Shechina? On the Sefirat symbolism of manna, see above, end of note 1.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. So let's see. This is what I mentioned this in my little intro. Let's go on, Ben. Mystery of the matter. This is the teaching of jealousy. Now that has to do with the jealous husband who brings his wife to the Beit HaMikdash to drink the sota water. Not every jealous husband gets to just bring, I'm jealous, I think my wife is doing something, I get to bring her to the Beit HaMikdash to drink this water. It's a whole tractate. And it wasn't so necessarily such a frequent thing that this idea of the sota actually occurred. And it wasn't just because the husband felt like doing it. There was a systems of checks and balances before it got to that level.
Isn't part of the whole point that like he doesn't want to divorce her? He could have just divorced her if he was jealous. So like he's trying to prove that like it's fine. I can go on. With
Yes.
It, and, like it's voluntary
Yes.
on her part. She can like refuse to do it, right?
Of course she. Well, not of course. According to the Talmud, she can absolutely refuse. However, by refusing, she forfeits her. It's all about money, really. It's about love and money. He wants to keep her, and she's not willing to just divorce him and lose her rights to the ketuvah money. So that's real. It's about love and money. Yes, Rabbi Yossi.
I thought it was that and that's why there was all these checks and balances, because once he triggers it, there's no way out. It has to go to
it has to either end in divorce.
Control his voice. If he says it and he puts a "Don't you go there," and she pushes it, then basically it's over.
No.
They have to run through this.
Well, we take precautions, but there's a series of debates. In other words, it has to be, let's say, according to the strictest opinion, she warns her in front of witnesses not to seclude herself with this person. And then she secludes herself with the person, and there's witnesses. So, or at least there's some witnesses. There has to be some witnesses. It can't all just be, he said, I warned her, and then I saw her. That's definitely not going to do it. But, in other words, we understand there's people who are aware of, like, they're having issues in the relationship. He's suspicious of her, of a specific person that he warned her against, going into a private place. And she's not regarding his warning, and we don't know what they did. Maybe they just like to talk privately. She has the option to divorce him, but that she will forfeit the ksuva money. Yeah, it's pretty clear in the Talmud. Yeah. Okay, so
As Harusa Lunashe Alma?
Mystery of the matter, yeah. This is Torah Akinos, the teaching of jealousy, spelled deficiently. It's missing an aleph. A warning to women of the world not to stray under their husband's authority. Otherwise, she is to bring barley flour. Okay, let's keep reading and then we'll go back to note 192, which is a long note. Okay, keep going. Happy is the share of Israel, for the assembly of Israel has never been unfaithful to the Blessed Holy One. Assembly of Israel is astonished. If a woman strays under her husband's authority, consequently, the punishment of this woman comes from her place. What is her place? The one of whom it is written, a woman of strength who can find, her price is far beyond rubies. A woman of strength is her husband's crown. Okay. Let's read the notes here, Zev. 192 and 193.
According to Numbers 5:11 to 31, a wife suspected of adultery is to be tested by being made to drink a potion. If she is guilty, her belly will swell and her thigh sag. Before the potion is prepared, the jealous husband brings an offering for his wife, which is called a grain offering of jealousy and consists of 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. This offering is equivalent to the rabbinic interpretation of the Haomer offering brought on the second day of Pesach. In Numbers 5:29, the word hakenot, jealousy, is spelled without a vav following the aleph. According to Rabbi Shimon, this deficient spelling alludes to Shechina, who lacks illumination until she's united with Tiferes. Any woman who strays from her husband will be punished by Shechina, as explained below, and will have to bring an offering of barley flour symbolizing Shechina. On the parallel between the grain offering of jealousy and the Haomer offering on the second day of Pesach, see Vayikra Rabbah. Should we go on to the next note?
Is everyone good with this note? It's an interesting note. So he's basically saying, he's answering the question, what is it? Why don't we, what is it in the relationship between Pesach and Shavuos in terms of the offering of the Haomer offering that's brought on Pesach from the barley, and then on Shavuos the Shtei Halechem that's brought of fine, very super fine flour from not barley flour, wheat flour. So he's saying the answer is that if you know that you need that barley needs the wheat, so to speak, then it's fine. If the barley strays from the wheat, then it's not refined. Then it's corrupted. So it's like the wife and the husband. If the wife knows that she has to be loyal to the husband, then she's good. But if she doesn't know, she doesn't actually stay with her husband, and she leaves her husband to be with another man. So then there's a jealousy that's aroused, so to speak. Then the same thing that could be in other words, the sin of the woman who left her husband, who went astray, is like the barley that did not connect to this Tiferet, the Malchut that did not stay connected to Tiferet. Okay. Okay, go on and read the next one.
Assembly of Israel has never been unfaithful.
So, by the way, in a sense, if we do Pesach and we don't really do Shavuos, we are like the adulterous woman. I know did that come out right? It didn't sound. In other words, what that means is like we get this thing from God, but it's imperfect. What was it? The imperfect vessel, Zev, that you described, right? The political word, the imperfect vessel, to describe a certain politician by certain religious people. So, by very nature, we are the imperfect vessel, especially when we are saved. So this is our version of being saved in Judaism, is God takes us out of Egypt. But guess what? That's just the beginning. Then is when we do the Shavuot, the 7 times 7, the 7 weeks of 7, where we refine ourselves. We turn our animal selves closer into our human selves. If we neglect that, then we had a kino. Then we're being warned on this. As soon as we have Pesach, the second day of Pesach, here's an animal offering. If you don't fix it, you're like because God is the jealous husband. We're the suspected adulteress. We're being given a warning to get ourselves together so we don't stray from God during that 7-week period. Okay? Could I be any more clear? It's like, this is heavy musar, It's supposed to be uplifting. Instead, it's like the rabbis, not only are the adulterous women unnecessarily being judged, we're all being, put in this terrible position. Look, if we're going to judge people, we might as well include ourselves in the judgment,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Except the note says different here.
That's why you have me as well as the note. If you only had the note, you'd be right. Okay, let's go on. Note 192.
Shechina, known as Assembly
93.
of Israel, has never strayed from her husband Tiferes, known as the Blessed Holy One, and she is shocked that any Jewish woman could possibly stray from her mate. If she does, then her punishment comes from her place, that is, from the divine feminine source, Shechina herself, who is described in Proverbs as a woman of strength.
Of course, we know that's not true. I mean, meaning the whole idea of galut is that there is a concept. It's like, we're like, we know Israel's always been faithful. I mean, read the prophets and tell me that again. So clearly it's like metaphorically, meaning on some level we've always been faithful. On the other hand, whatever. Okay, go on. I
think that's as far as we got.
Yeah.
It actually says, Shechina is the Assembly of Israel. So Shechina has never been unfaithful to Pharaoh.
Yes and no. Yeah.
Okay.
Shechina comes with us when we go into exile.
Yeah.
So like,
Shechina is often this. Yeah. Shechina.
Unless we use that one I was reading from the Bereshit section, in which it talks about that Adam, the sin of Adam, is that he separated the Shechina from the other Sefirat.
Yeah.
And that's the sin.
Yeah, there's a basic concept in Zohar is Shechina does get separated from the Holy, from Tiferet. But on some level, it's they're both right. They're both true. It does and it doesn't. Okay. I thought we did the one. I'll read the last two lines of the first paragraph. Ben, I don't know if you want to find it. It's 96b. Tzadik Vav Amid Beis.
You're skipping?
No, I'm not skipping.
Oh, Mahu Kamach Sora?
No, I'm not skipping at all. Let's back it up a little bit.
Oh, backing up. Okay.
Just a little bit. 2 lines. Okay, what is her place? The one of whom is written, a woman of strength who can find. Her price is far beyond rubies. Proverbs, right? We say it every Friday night. A woman of strength is her husband's crown. Actually, we did read it already. Let's continue. Yeah. The barley flour that this woman offers is called a grain offering of kinaot, jealousy. Spelled deficiently. An assembly of Israel is called so. Thus, of Pinchas it is written, because for his kina, he's getting repaid for his acting zealously for his God. Because kinaot or kina, jealousy, sticks to here or adheres here. Since jealousy is aroused against those who betray the covenant. Thus, jealousy or the jealous can attack him, which is Pinchas attacking poor Zimri. Go ahead and read note 194.
The suspected adulteress brings an offering of barley flour, which is called the grain offering of Kina'ot, jealousy. Here too, the word Kina'ot, jealousy, is spelled without a vav following the aleph, and this deficient spelling alludes to Shechina. Characterized by righteous zeal and jealousy, she attacks anyone who betrays the covenant with God by sinning sexually. Similarly, Pinchas acted zealously at Shittim. There, the tribal chieftain Zimri, son of Salih, had sexual relations with a Midianite woman named Cosbis, daughter of Zohar. God was incensed and inflicted a plague upon the people. But immediately Pinchas, fueled by righteous jealousy of Shechina, killed the sinning couple and the plague ceased, whereupon Pinchas inherited the priesthood. The closing quotation derives from Sanhedrin. If a man copulates with an Armenian, i.e. a heathen woman, zealots can attack him. The context in Numbers 25 reads, I hereby grant him my covenant of peace for him and for his seed after him a covenant of perpetual priesthood in recompense for his acting zealously for his God and atoning for the children of Israel.
Okay, thank you. Are we on the next page already? Come and see.
Yeah.
Okay, come and see. Ben. The Omer was barley flour.
Haomer, the kivan the havamote l'rechain.
For once it reached the mill, they obtained from it a tenth ephah sifted through 13 sieves. This is 7 perfect weeks. After 7 weeks finished, the Holy One, the Holy King, comes to be one, to couple with the assembly of Israel, and Torah is given. Then the Torah, the king is adorned. Then the king is adorned with complete oneness and unity, and oneness prevails above and below. Okay, let's Zev read 195 and 196, please. The notes.
Following the rabbinic interpretation, Rabbi Shimon explains that the Omer offering on the second day of Pesach consisted of fine barley flour. This was produced by grinding barley groats, i.e. hulled barley, into coarse flour and then sifting it through 13 sieves, each finer than the preceding one, yielding finally an Omer, 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour, which was offered on the altar. See above note 189 on the grinding and sifting of barley. See Menachos. In Sota, a distinction is made between the fine quality of the Omer offering and the coarse unsifted flour, apparently including the hulls, offered for the suspected adulterers. This inferior coarse flour is referred to as kemach, coarse flour, as opposed to geresh, groats of the Omer offering, which is turned into fine flour. 196, that's on this is 7 perfect weeks. As mentioned above, Rabbi Shimon assimilates the offering of an Omer barley on the second day of Pesach to the 7-week counting of the Omer between Pesach, commemorating Exodus, and Shavuos, commemorating the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. After these 7 perfect weeks associated with the pure sifted flour, King Tiferes unites with Shechina, known as Assembly of Israel. Leviticus 35:15 reads in full, "You shall count from the morrow of the Sabbath, from the day you shall bring a sheaf of elevation, 7 Shabbosos to Mimos, complete, perfect Sabbaths shall they be."
Okay. Thank you. I'll read a little bit more. When the Holy King is aroused and the time of Torah arrives, all of these trees whose fruits ripen early go up with song and praise. What do they say when their fruit is gathered? They open by saying, God in heaven has set his throne, and his kingdom rules over all. That's in Tehillim 103, verse 19. Hashem, God, your kindness is in heaven, and is written, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Beautiful. Okay, go on and read note 197, please.
Shavuos commemorates the giving of the Torah, and also marks the beginning of the wheat harvest, when first fruits were offered. Fittingly, the ripening trees offer song. On the trees opening in song, see the verse in Chronicles with which Rabbi Shimon opened. Then the trees of the forest will sing with joy before Hashem.
Okay, great. Let's do a little bit more. We're almost done here. They open again saying a song, a song to Hashem, a new song, for he has done wonders. Psalms 98:1. It's called the new song. Thus, when you bring a new grain offering, meaning new. There, a grain offering of jealousy. Here, a new grain offering. New. New for here is renewal of all, bond of all above and below, bond of faith. So Jacob the complete is adorned with his crowns and Torah is given. So he's saying there's certain similarities and there's a lot of differences between these two barley offerings. Our barley offering is new, the one on Shavuos. On Pesach, as opposed to the barley offering of the suspected the sota. There, it's not new. The opposite of new. Let's see note 198. They open again, Zev.
Yeah, the trees sing further praise. Their new song matches the new grain offering of wheat brought on Shavuos. This new grain offering symbolizes a cosmic renewal, and it contrasts with the Haomer of barley brought on Pesach, which corresponds to the offering of barley brought on behalf of the suspected adulteress.
Oh, so so I was not right. Okay, meaning the song singing is on the seventh week on Shavuos, meaning the newness. Even though they're both new, it's not really the real newness is on Shavuos, which is not like the adulterer, which is somehow connected a little bit to Pesach.
The offering of jealousy. Now on Shavuos, Sefirat, symbolized by Jacob, is completely adorned. The full verse in Numbers 28 reads, "On the day of first fruits, when you bring an offering of new grain, or a new grain offering to Hashem in your festival of weeks, a sacred convocation shall you have. No laborious work shall you do."
Okay, great. I think we'll take it. I think that's good for today. I'm going to shut off Facebook Live, and then we'll just wrap it up here on the Zoom.